Venom: The Last Dance is now available on digital, so we're sitting down with production and visual effects supervisors John Moffatt and Aharon Bourland about their work on the film, their passion for visual effects, and the tools that they use.
It was massive, and it was being heated by these insane heat pumps, and then it had things that were churning up the water surface, and that is an incredible practical SFX application. Well done. But we still then had to go and use digital visual effects significantly in conjunction with that to tell the story.
And there was weird practical problems of if you heat 10,000 gallons of hot water on a cold day, you produce a massive steam cloud.
Oh yeah! Don't go away. This is your Geek Fix.
We met, when did we meet? Was it 2016, I think?
Yeah, we were both working at DNEG. And
yeah, we were working at DNEG, and we were doing a Crazy Alien show.
Yeah.
And,
I think I was pretty new to DNEG at that point.
Lots of Crazy Alien stuff.
Yeah. I had kind of come on.
She's completely awesome. I want to work with her lots.
Wait, so when you say Crazy Alien stuff, which video are you, or which movie are you talking about?
I think I was kind of new to DNEG because I had worked at Tippett Studios for 13 years before that. So I kind of had a background in creature monster effects and stuff like that. And I think DNEG was kind of getting more into that. So I was doing those types of jobs at DNEG. And then John had gotten Life, which was a Crazy Alien movie.
Yeah.
Came together on that.
Yeah,
what are the kind of the things you feel support each other as far as working on projects like Venom and Life and things like that?
I mean, the first thing I think is we just get on, and we've done a fair bit of work together on a few different projects now, and I just love Aharon's sensibility around the way things work and creatures, and kind of her way of seeing things is usually a little bit different to mine. I come from a compositing background, and Aharon comes from a more effects and animation background. So it's just a kind of good melting pot. And I think, I don't know, I'd say our relationship sort of evolved over the years, but moreover now, it's a kind of case of Aharon does what Aharon does and I do what I do, and then we kind of just meet somewhere in the middle and go, yeah, that's cool.
Works.
Yeah.
Show it off to each other afterwards.
Well, no, we work back and forth as we're going. We talk a lot, and it's a good collaboration. It's hard to find someone that you work well with, where you can in the middle of something be deep in it, and then showing it to them, and then they'll give you their feedback on it, and then you're oh, and then you can show him your stuff, and then you can kind of go back and forth and move the work forward in an exciting, organic way, which makes the whole, it makes the work better, and it makes the process more fun and more engaging. Yeah.
Aharon missed us talking about her before she came on. We were talking behind their back about your acting contribution.
You dropped me in it.
John was even acting it out for us.
Top 10 anime betrayals.
I was trying to impress on the guys that sometimes when there's an animation note to be given, so there may be a bit of physical performance.
I think that's that's a throwback. That's 100% something I learned working at Tippett, just from working with animators early in my career. And Phil was such he's such a weird physical guy. When you're trying to describe how there's a shot of Null in this movie where he's coming out of darkness, and it was trying to describe and he's coming out and stuff like that, and then the light needs to move, and then they would do posters and posters on it, and they're this is right. Then I got the PA in a room, and then we got somebody with a lamp moving, and then it's just this
and then somebody walks in the door. That's pretty good.
But it's like, I don't know, it's a much more like direct way to communicate stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's visual, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't know, animation and acting are very similar in movies like this.
Yeah. It's one thing to understand the anatomy or get the physics. It's a whole other thing to see how it's going to look and know how to picture or present that. It's
I mean, it's storytelling. It's like, I mean, these characters are on screen. Like in a movie like this, Venom's on screen for like 70% of the movie. He's like a major character. He's the lead character in the movie almost. Yeah,
and he's virtual basically.
Yeah.
I got to see a lot of the clips. They did send us clips, which I'll be able to inject later. But at the same time, for example, with some of the dancing scene, you got somebody dressed in a mocap suit and moving around things. How much input do you get in the pre-production and production end versus some of the post-production piece?
Well, quite a lot. I mean, like, before we get into that, I think that one of the things that was, I mean, there were a number of unique things, they're not unique, but they were quite fortunate on this job, which, like, us working together is always, a joy, but Kelly was particularly collaborative and, she's a very trusting director. She really, she allowed us to kind of, take an idea and run with it. And so, and her philosophy was always, look, the best idea wins. Whatever it is, whatever comes out of the kind of melting pot of discussion and testing and the pre-production stuff, wherever we get to that's best, we'll do that. And so in terms of the dance sequence, we had a choreographer who was incredible, a lady called Jen. And she did some great choreography. And then we knew that we were going to be bound by certain sort of physicalities, like obviously Venom's size and the eye line. So we figured out that it wasn't particularly technical. We just gave the dancing double arm extenders, and then we gave her an eye line that was worn on a hat that we worked out the approximate height of where Venom would be. So we knew that the performance could take place in the physical space, and that the key thing was for Mrs. Chen needed to be looking up the whole time. Otherwise, it wasn't really going to work. But that from there on, it was more of a case of keeping an eye on the technical gotchas, like don't have Mrs. Chen get too close to where Venom's going to be, and those kind of things. And then from there, we just let it play out. The choreography was what was the guide on that stuff. And there was talk about having a mocap thing on set. But the way we did it was we shot it all with a dance double, a guy called Tom, who was great. And then we had this other dude who was a big dude called James, and he would had a Venom sort of lighting reference that we'd do a pass with him. And then we shot an empty pass, and then editorially we just used what was best. And then because they choreographed the dance so tightly, we were able to go away and do a separate motion capture session of that dance routine that we used as the basis for the animation of the Venom character.
So I had a question about that scene. So what did the disco ball solve or make it more difficult? Because I thought it was already very impressive that the scene was happening and that someone decided to add a disco ball, and I assume that would really interfere with Venom in a very special way, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I can remember thinking it was going to be a massive pain in the ass.
Yeah, that was my first impression.
But it wasn't my pain in the ass, really. It was some poor lighting 3D at DNEG who had to figure that out. I mean, I don't know. It probably wasn't that much of a pain in the ass, really, in that you can get away with a lot of stuff when you've got things that move and the subject's moving and the light's moving. But they did a good job of tying in the gobo lighting on Venom with the lighting in the background. And a lot of that environment's all replaced anyway. So there was quite a lot of set extension on the set, and obviously, that was it. I did think when I was looking at it, like, oh, we're going to match that, but yeah, they did a great job in the end. So yeah, we were fortunate. We didn't really have to get too into the nitty gritty on that. We were, DNEG solved it, and it was never a thing that we needed to go and look at and say, hey, that doesn't look like it matches the photography. We need to talk about it.
Right.
Wow. And the fact that so from what I read at least is that the Venom model itself basically evolved along with the movies, right?
It's basically
that's a kind of Aharon thing more than it is a me thing.
Because actually, I made the Venom on the first. I worked on like all three of them, kind of to some degree. Like I did all the dev and dev'd them out and built all the effects in the first one, and then like kind of helped on the second one and the church sequence at the end, and then came onto this one. Venom's basically the same. I'm pretty I don't think maybe there's improvements in the facial rig and like some of the rigging and animations on him, but the base model and textures and stuff are pretty much similar. ILM kind of moved the shading and like texture on his skin a little bit forward, like. Because when they interpreted what DNEG had done, they kind of pushed that a little bit forward, which gave him some nice like skin detail and stuff like that. I mean, the effect, like the wraith form of him has evolved because that one's like completely procedurally kind of generated, and like every movie, whoever's working on it thinks they can do it better, so they like kind of like decide to rework the whole system for the wraith venom, and like I think they kind of made a bit of a mistake on the second one and got in over their head, and then we had to rebuild it again. So it's like, but that guy kind of evolves because he's constantly changing and he's made of liquids and he's like kind of weird like that. But yeah,
a lot of sim work, is that what you'd say is?
It's like a lot of. I mean, this might sound highly technically and specific.
That's great. That's what we're here for.
A Houdini background for doing like sim and procedural animation stuff. So. That's kind of how I got involved with the series. But yeah, it's all like, we try to avoid doing actual sims. It's all like procedurally generated animation so that it's very predictable and you have to do like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them.
Wow.
So that you try to not, you want to be able to like iterate as quickly as you can on them. Otherwise you're like basically just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it looks like Venom. Like if you were doing like fluid sims of it, you'd just be like, does this fluid sim look like Venom? Does this one look like Venom? And you'd be there forever trying to get it to work right. So it's much more like prescribed and procedural methods so that you can like make a formula so that when you run the system, it always looks like Venom.
Consistency.
Yeah. It's a tricky thing when you're dealing with like a constantly changing fluid sim that's a character. Like it was really difficult. Like ILM had to make him for the underwater where it's going in the river. And that was like a new thing where it's like, it has to look like a living liquid in water swimming through the thing, trying to get a thing, but it still needs to look like Venom when it's doing it. And there was just like a million iterations of what that could look like. And like none of them looked like Venom at first. It looked like a cooch ball or like a bunch of strings or like all these random things. But yeah, they finally got there in the end. But yeah, it's a lot of trial and error at the beginning and then you kind of like lock onto it.
Would you say, I mean, since you have been involved in that process of the evolution over time and things, as far as the tools go, as far as how you're doing all this, has that changed also over this period of time? I mean, is there anything that's easier now than it was?
I think we're just smarter and faster at doing it now. The tools are basically the same. The software is the same. It's just what took like, I think like a Wraith Venom shot would take like 3 weeks or 4 weeks to set up, like the thing that comes out of him in the first movie. And then like by the end movie, you could do like 4 or 5 of them in that period of time because they've like kind of honed in the recipe and the artist doing it. I think we had to have like, on the first movie, we had to have like for every like a tentacle, a wraith, a venom, like a shapeshifter, like for every type of venom, we had to have like an entire team of artists like devving it, trying to figure it out.
Right. When you get more than one of the species going on too, does that become even more complicated?
Yeah, that's why most of them got killed off in the beginning.
It's interesting to hear though that you are still running the same software for all of the visual effects on it.
I mean, for sim stuff, basically everybody uses Houdini. Like Houdini is like
water effects and all that stuff is.
Or just you can do anything with it. I'm like I don't know. Talking about software is like talking about religion. There's people who like some things and people who like
Well, whatever works, right?
Yeah. Now, something that we haven't mentioned yet is that speaking of Venom and speaking of all of this work, is that this particular show for you is pretty important, because this one has won an award specifically for a scene that I wanted to kind of go through a little bit with you. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the BAFTA? And
why did we win?
Was that partially tied to? I thought that was tied to the horse animation. Is it not?
I'm not aware that it's won anything.
Oh, really? Oh,
this is like a new. You're like surprising us with this amazing.
Oh, really? I didn't know I was the first one to know. Yeah, boy, it pops up online when I read it.
Well, you got a nomination. Maybe you got.
Yeah. Oh, at least a nomination. I apologize, but still.
I don't know. If it does get nominated for anything, that would be nice, because it would just go to show that if you do hopefully get a good group of people together and do some fun shit, maybe good things will happen.
Right.
As far as I'm aware, I don't think it's actually reached that lofty height.
The apex yet of, I gotcha.
Yeah, I think this year there's been a lot of incredible work. And I think
it's nominated for a Saturn Award in 2025, apparently, according to IMDb.
Wow. Oh, okay.
Cool.
That's nice.
There you go.
I had to Google that, to be very honest.
Very humble people. Okay.
Here's the thing. Like, the visual effects is a massive team game. And we have been part of those teams for a very long time. And now we sit in this slightly weird place where we talk about the work more than we do the work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we kind of try and help lots of different groups of people create work that fits together in a unified way across a whole movie. And if it does happen to win any kind of accolade, then ultimately I think that it's applauded for the team that is enormous in its global reach, and so many people will have touched those pieces of work along the way. If anything good comes out of it for people who may or may not get nominated, then I'll be delighted for them. And I don't know how Aaron feels about it, but I think we're pretty aligned in that sensibility. As like,
it's a massive, I mean, we talk to, like, when we're in production, like, we're talking to 2 or 3 vendors a day with teams of like 20 to 100 people or more on each side. I mean, it's like an army of humanity is making the work. And it's a miracle that it comes together into something that's entertaining and good and nice to look at. Like, so there's a lot of storytelling, and there's a lot of hopes and dreams and like wanting to come together into this.
Right.
Yeah.
What is supervision like these days? I mean, does that involve just a lot of dailies and things, or are you doing that in person, or is this everybody's working across the globe in their house or with big,
I think I can only tell you what I do, and Aaron can tell you how she does it. But for me, I have everything that comes in overnight goes into a folder. I look at everything, and then just on my own, and then we'll usually have vendor calls, and then we'll get into each individual shot and each individual sequence. So whilst I'm looking at individual shots, an editor will be cutting those shots into a sequence. And I'll go and I'll look at the shots in isolation, then I'll look at the shots in the cut, and then I'll have a vendor call, and we'll try and work our way through notes. I think it's probably similar for Aaron, but I think everyone's got their own way of doing it.
I mean, that's pretty much the same. I mean, I think I do find myself more and less busy personally at different points in the process. Like I find myself like really busy when we're kind of doing post viz, like right at the beginning of post, like when the editor is like editing heavily, and then we're like grabbing plates and like really like finding what the sequences are, because then you're like constantly on the phone with the post viz vendors, like trying to get through like 100, 200 shots a week of like just rough animation to try and figure out what the stories are, and then it kind of tapers down. Like then the other vendors kind of move on, and then it kind of tapers down like the amount I'm talking to them towards the end of the process, even though they're going like harder and harder and harder.
Right.
You're trying to like encourage and like just give them the space, be like, you know how to finish this, you've got the skills, you've got the talent, like
you're just cheerleading at that point.
Well, you're giving a weird point, right? Yeah.
There's a weird point you reach where it gets to a certain point when it's just like, okay, go. And you kind of, then you get slightly less busy.
Yeah.
You're just waiting for it to come back. And then it goes a bit crazy at the end. But the shoot's always crazy. The first bit of post, the director's cut, is always, like Aaron says, super, super busy. And then if the director's cut goes well, because generally we populate the director's cut with post-viz,
right,
and some hero shots that we've been working on with the vendors. But if the director's cut goes well, then you have a roadmap for the rest of post, because it's like, right, do a good version of that.
Yeah.
But more often than not, most of it sticks, but there's some stuff that comes out the director's cut that needs to evolve for whatever reason. And then you figure that out. Or maybe there's a bit of additional photography. But yeah, it kind of ebbs and flows. But the process on a daily basis is pretty much the same. Stuff comes in, you kind of look at it in the cut, give notes, and then off you go again. We try and get everything that comes in, we review that day and make sure that the notes go back out, because you never want to slow down the momentum. You always want to kind of,
because of the sort of snowball effect.
Yeah, there's never a movie that you work on where you're like, oh, we've got too much time. You know what? Like, every single movie, you're always like, oh, we could do with more time to just make this work a little bit better every time.
Especially like you get to the end and you're like, oh man, if we would have just done this and that sequence differently, like we could have done this. There's like, you'd actually give us that, you know, like by the time you get to the end is when you know how to do the movie. But then when you're at the beginning trying to do the movie, you have no idea what you're doing. But then you get to the end and you're like, oh, well, I could do 100 of these now. But then you never do it again because every movie's different.
Right.
But the funny thing is that the things that feel as well, that they're like, you know, oh, it's a nightmare, and I can't believe we've got to put that in the movie. Now, those things don't feel like that at all. Actually, it looks quite nice.
Yeah.
You know,
it is satisfying when there's like something you think is going to be the worst thing and the hardest thing in the world, and then someone just does it in like one night, and you're like, oh shit, you did it. Oh, that looks
great. Well done.
Humanity. Yeah.
But then then there's the thing you don't think. You think it's going to be the easiest thing in the world. You think it, and then like you're like 100 versions into it, and no one can get it, and you're like, why can't we just make this puddle look right? Like what's
Right.
So, the
simplest thing in the world.
So, any regrets that we're still in the Venom movie?
Any regrets? There are some really cool shots that are on the cutting room floor. There was some really cool ones that we finished off that just in the process of editing just didn't fit anymore. But as standalone elements, there's some really cool ones.
They'll be somewhere in the DVD release or in the. Or something like that, maybe.
There might be. There's one shot of like a buggy and a bunch of creatures running down a road that I think was one of the favorite shots I've done in many years. And it was like a long shot, and it got cut into like 3 pieces, and it works in the cut, but
like
the original
4 seconds out of 10.
That original form of that shot was amazing.
Yeah, it was good.
You said that one of the benefits of this film was the director really involving you a lot in that process and things. But I'm guessing that the common thing I hear from VFX artists that are friends of mine that will often complain is that, you know, the director or other people come up with these ideas and they don't think out how it's going to have to be carried out in the end. They'd film it and everything and just kind of hand it over and they're like, you know, yeah, make this happen. Like,
I don't think that happened on this show. I think I don't know, I felt pretty involved of like working with because a lot of the action sequences, I worked with the second unit director, Brian Smears. And this is like the second movie I worked with him on. We did Ghostbusters Afterlife together.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, I felt very collaborative about like the stuff, like the big set piece stuff. Like I was like next to him on set. We were like shooting the stuff. We would talk about where the things were going to be. Like he was like, all right, I want to do a wire pull and I want to use the actor here. I don't want to use digidoubles. Like, and and it was a healthy give and take. I think it made the work better.
Yeah, we had an interview with Ben Hall last year, even, was it?
No, this year. It was
this year.
March.
Oh yeah.
March.
Time goes fast. So we talked with Ben Hall about it, and like he did the physical props mostly, I think, for with Afterlife.
Oh, cool. I already worked with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's in the UK too.
No, it was Frozen Empire. Sorry,
Frozen Empire.
Yeah,
sorry.
Afterlife. Yeah.
It's funny because there's also a band that did the the same thing for Afterlife, but it's a different band.
Different band.
Yeah, different band than him, but at the same time.
So, apart from supervising, like in your careers, what would you consider like your highlights being? Because you came from Tippett Studios, for example, I assume that's very practical.
It was. I mean, I wasn't there when we were doing like stop motion, like puppets and stuff. That was in like the 80s,
right?
But we still. I mean, I think we still had a physical stage, and they kind of actually because I left there about 8-9 years ago. They've actually kind of transitioned back into doing more stop motion, like after I left, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. But what are your like coup de grace, like the biggest things you would put on your resume if you could pick one in your career?
Oh, I don't know. John, you want to go first?
Working with you. That will be. I would say, yeah. The highlight is working with Aaron. No,
10 points.
Yeah. I don't know. So. Like, if you look at the films that I've been fortunate enough to work on, we had some really good times on some of the Potter movies, and there was a real sense of like family kind of lots of people who knew each other working repeatedly together, which was really nice. I think that whilst that stuff is kind of like emotive, I think that when we worked together for the first time on this movie Life in 16, 17, I mean, we did so much on that movie that was like, there was the central character of the movie, which had about 5 different kind of evolutions or stages.
Yeah. And
we also obviously couldn't go to space, so we did the environment as well. And then all of the physical sets were really good, but everyone was floating around on wires. So we touched a large percentage of the movie. And for me, I think when you're involved in a visual effects work that contributes so much to the story, then I think you're in a really good place, regardless of the outcome of the film. That's the thing that I enjoy most. And also I think that there was a lot of good invisible work in addition to the central character and the environment stuff. So that I think was probably something I enjoyed. I think that we managed to get an emotional performance out of Venom in this movie. That was something that I think hopefully landed with the audience. But moreover, I think that, it's about who you go to work with on a daily basis and how you show up to see those people that you have a working relationship with. And on this movie, that was really, really good. Aaron's mentioned Brian and Kelly, and we got on really well with across the board. Fabian, our DP, was great, and we just had a good time trying to. It's a privilege to do this stuff, right? And so I think that just trying to not lose sight of that, and that we're lucky to do something that we really enjoy. I don't know. There are special moments on every job, and I sort of struggle to hand pick bits out that are more memorable than others. But overall, I think it's about just trying to have a good time with people you like working with.
I mean, and sometimes, I don't know, I find like some of the hardest projects, like in the middle of it, I'm like, oh my God, this is so hard. Like, this will never come together. But then when you look back on them in hindsight, you're like, oh, that was great. Like, I can't believe we pulled that off. We all like came together and got it. But like, at the moment, you're like, we're all going to die. The ship's on fire.
It's going down.
It's ups and downs, basically.
Yeah. That darn puddle just still doesn't look right.
But that's like it comes together. There was like a shot once where it was like they'd been like working on it for 6 months, like trying to get the shot together, and like we were in the last like 2 weeks of this production. It's like, well, we have one shot left to finish the movie. It's like, well, so we've been working on it for 6 months. It isn't right. It's like, well, there's only 2 weeks left, so the math doesn't make any sense. There's no way we couldn't get it in 6 months. How are we gonna do it in 2 weeks? But then like somebody has like a genius idea, and then like push together, and everybody pushes, and you come up with this thing, and it's like, oh my God, we did it! And then everybody's excited, and those moments are always like exciting and good. But
I would think it would be
push
hard.
a project along.
What?
Stress can really push a project along.
That's
But
true.
also, like, I don't know, there's that bonding over when you enjoy the people you're with and you're in those moments. Like, it can be rewarding.
Brings you even closer together.
Yeah.
True.
I would think the compositing aspect must be very difficult, especially since so you have something that literally interacts on one of the characters. That must be difficult, I would think. But then again, you've been doing this for a little while, so
I mean, tracking onto things is kind of, I think, it's one of those known problems at this point. Like, there's like, it's a decent amount of work, but you know the road to travel. So it's not like,
But like,
we're pretty old as well, so you kind of you've like had a few goes. There's not.
Experienced.
Yeah.
I think there's a bit of experience, and then with that comes a kind of knowledge that, okay, whatever we do, we're going to make this work.
Yeah.
But the bar is always to try and shoot it as cleanly as possible and communicate what it is you're trying to do to the performers that are involved and maybe the camera team, so that you can get the best version of what it is you're trying to do. And like, it's not rocket science to do a pass with someone human, generally. Right. Like, so if you've got something that interacts and you need to know how it's going to interact, then stick a double in there and shoot it.
Yeah.
And like, reference is key. Even though that person might end up being some alien or creature or something different to what's represented by the double, as long as you've got some reference to hook into, then you're probably in a good place. You're in a much better place than if you haven't got anything. You're like, what would that look like? How would that work? And so our job is to try and leave the set knowing that we've got enough material to communicate what it is we want to end up with to a team of people who, until we explain it to them, don't really know what the ask is.
Yeah.
Do you scan your sets and things too? I mean, are you getting 3D reference and light reference, everything. IDR, all that?
Yeah, everything. Yeah. If it goes on set, if it gets worn, if it gets touched, if it goes anywhere near the set when it's scanned and photographed and textured, and we walk away with everything, because so often these days you end up being asked, and it could just be for some drama sequence. It might not even be a sequence that's got visual effects component. You might get asked, can we create a piece that does this for whatever it may be? And the answer has always got to be, yeah, no problem. And then you go away and scratch your head and figure out.
I think a lot of the times we end up using, because I use a lot of, I shoot a lot of clean plates when we're covering action. So usually we'll cover the action and then cover camera moves of the action with nothing in it.
To clarify, clean plates when nobody's there. Yeah, like that. Yeah.
But it comes in incredibly handy in post. I find it much more useful than doing you have a LiDAR scan of an environment, then you have to build that off the LiDAR scan and render it and everything like that. But a lot of times the editor will be like, oh man, I need so and so to say I love you in a close up at this point in the movie, but they don't have that shot. But if you have the plate, then you can just bring the actor back, put him on blue, light him the background, and then shoot it. And it's a very, very simple A/B comp instead of having to recreate in a whole 3D environment.
It gives you more of a natural feel as well to it.
Oh, I think you'd probably be surprised how many shots in movies are clean plates with actors shot back onto them.
Are you shooting that with normal camera? Are you doing a 360 or what are you doing?
No, just do a normal background. Just basically when you're shooting it, move the actors out, shoot the background again.
Oh, I gotcha.
Like the old
standard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The old tricks.
What about
tricks?
I don't know if you have names now for some of the effects that you're commonly doing for this, like that whole face pill thing that happens with him. Yeah. I would think that, kind of going back to that composite piece of what you mentioned earlier, for people that don't know, just because you film somebody like I am right now, then you come back and you're going to have something on top of it. Everything under here still has no shading for what we're doing. So then I do that. Are you doing any 3D?
Yeah, there's a full
doubles.
You're mostly replacing almost everything except for exactly where the acting's happening. Most of that. There's a lot of times in the transformations, we'll replace the arms, the performance and stuff like that, because it's the actor didn't know exactly what the transformation was going to be, so that they'll be doing something. And you're like, oh, it would look a lot better if their arm was up like that when they did the transformation.
Right. So you do some 3D double stuff then still in that case.
Try and most of the face and the acting of the character and stuff like that.
So are most of the movies now, are you also 3D scanning your characters, or are you the actors?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That includes where they go around with the light and stuff, so you can see all the shading and things too.
Yeah, that's basically it. There's usually a trailer on set that's a big box of cameras that someone I go get scanned, walk in, walk out.
Wow. How long have they been doing that? How long has that been just a standard part of practice? Because I remember when that was a rare, big deal to do that. Now.
It's been a while now.
10, 15 years.
Oh, wow. Is it really? Wow. That's pretty wild.
I think the first time I saw it the first time I saw it on set was After Earth, which was that Will Smith movie. That was how long ago was that?
That was a while back.
Was it that long ago? Oh.
I think that was the first time I saw one a rig on set with it. But
yeah, they have these really cool. They just bring in the whole. It's in a shipping container. It's in a jazzy shipping container.
They have
there's one used on this called Clear Angle. Who we use a lot. There's another company called LiDAR Lounge as well, but Clear Angle have these great names. One of them's called Jean-Claude Van Scan.
Yeah, this Scanola Anderson.
Yes. Yeah, there's loads of them. They have great names, and it's comfortable for the actors. It's close by set, and you just get them when you can get them. and they go and get scanned. And usually we go with them, especially if you're doing like a hero actor, because it's not just a body scan if you're going to do a full set of facial shapes. Or oftentimes we kind of do there's a bunch of different options on the face shapes that we can do. We can do like a pared back set, or you can do the full set of facial shapes, which you have a number of different reference poses that the vendors like us to try and match, and then from those shapes,
like action poses. Is that what you're talking?
Well, it's like emotional
shapes and face shapes. Aaron, it's your bag, really.
Oh, there's a sequence of face shapes called fact shapes, like facial action units, and they correspond to like different muscle controls in your face. There's like, I'm trying to think of like brow raiser, brow squinch. There's there's all these, like the muscles in your face can only fire in certain ways, and someone has an entire set of like face poses that represent all the possible movements of the muscles in your face. So then you scan all of that, and then in the animation controls, you can use animators can use the fact shapes to then trigger facial poses, and that's how they animate facial animation. And then like when you do facial tracking, they would take the fact shapes and the head camera footage, and then they marry the two together.
Oh wow!
And that's how you get the facial performance tracking.
Oh, wow.
Next level claymation, basically.
It's gotten a lot more like in the last few years, they've gotten away. Like a lot of the people, you can do markerless tracking now, where you just have a head camera, and then it uses a bit of machine learning to like actually match the facial performances.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, which has gotten a lot. It's a lot better for the actors. You don't have to put all the dots on their faces, and it's kind of funny because people are always like, "I got to put the dots on my face," and you're like, "No, we don't need to do that anymore. We've moved beyond that."
Right. Some people really disappointed.
Yeah. Reel it back, Andy Serkis. So have you done any de-aging? Have you been involved in that process at all?
I've not on this show. And I've done a decent amount of de-aging on that stuff.
What is that process like? I mean, that's a lot of.
Most of that done is it's a 2D process for like what a lot of that's done, where it's much more like almost like a traditional comp paint workflow than like a digital face replacement. But it depends on who's doing the work. Whoever's doing the work kind of decides how they want to do the work. So we don't really.
How far you got to go, right? It depends how far you want to go. If it's just you got to paint out some eye bags, or you've got to take out some wrinkles. Beforehand, whatever, then there's probably a 2D solution. But if you've got to take 30 years and it's a different face shape and hair and all that stuff, then
So are they just looking at like a lot of old video reference, or like how are they? Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Like I think we did. It's like on Afterlife, we did we kind of resurrected Harold Ramis.
Oh yeah.
And that one was interesting because MPC looked at young Harold Ramis, because there's like what Harold Ramis looked like when he was older in reality, and then there's young Harold Ramis. But old Harold Ramis wasn't really what people would expect the character of Egon looking like when he was older. So they took the young Harold Ramis and then aged him forward into what the conception of Egon.
Did a hybrid.
Very interesting concept.
Yeah, but it worked in the theme of the story. It told the story correctly, which is what was important. Yeah.
I thought, it looked so good. I will say, when I was a kid, I mean, of course, growing up in the 1970s and 80s as well, I wanted to become a matte painter.
Yeah.
I thought that's what I wanted to do, right? Which now would look very different than it did back then, because now it would be more, that compositing and 3D work and stuff like that.
But it is amazing how the old matte paintings, there's still you're still compelled to look at them. They're still compelling images because they're beautiful art, and there's a person that made them, and you can tell that it's I don't know, they're an object of beauty that you can relate to, which is which is hard with some of those. There's so many now, there's matte paintings and a dialogue shot. There's 100 matte paintings in the background of this, but then there's that one matte painting looking down the shield generator in Star Wars that's an iconic, beautiful image where it's I don't know. I don't think it'll ever people will always want to connect with people over art. Like it's not. It doesn't matter what the technology is on a certain level. Like glass matte painting was the height of technology in the 70s. Like that was, whoa, I can't believe you've got like a multi-plane camera and 6 people, you're painting on a giant piece of glass. And like it was crazy difficult to do. So it's like we're always going to be playing with technology, but it's still storytelling and pictures.
Of course, I mean, they probably got really excited because the issue back then was, of course, you couldn't get by parallax. That was,
but you could do parallax of like you do mirror shots.
Or
multi-plane. Yeah, you can like. I remember because I would argue with Phil because Phil would be like, "Oh, you're new to this technology and like what are you doing with all this technology stuff?" And I'm like, "Dude, man, you literally figured out how to do motion blur on stop motion animation. Like, how the fuck did you figure that out? That is so much more complicated." Like, people are like, technology is just. That's just the thing that exists. That's not like it shouldn't be. I don't know.
What's your tech right now that you use, or what's the thing that's helping you get by these days with things like rotoscoping? I mean, that is the if I thought of something that was painstaking.
Lots of people still.
Is it just click, like going all the way around and just tying that down every time?
There's a foundry tool. I think it's called Copycat, isn't it?
Copycat like kind of works. Like I've used it some.
Kind of works, but it still needs help.
Yeah. We're a couple years away from completely automating a lot of that. Like
Just to our audience, most of them are like geeks who are interested in movie props and all prop making. Are there any practical tools that you are fond of in your work? And it might not just be for prop making, but just something you would not go on set without, or something that really helps you in your day-to-day?
I don't know, being able to draw, like being able to do like actual like, I don't know, like I make I don't know, like
ooh, wow.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Like I like
wow.
Just being able to like grab stuff and like be able to like mock up things of like what like ideas, just I don't know, like anything that can help me. Like I always carry my iPad with me when I'm on set so that I can like scribble and like I don't know, work and like just work through stuff.
Get the stuff out of your head, basically.
Yeah, just a way to show people what I'm thinking.
Okay.
For me, we try and get really good lighting reference when we're on set. And so depending on the scale of project that you're working on, you can have, like we knew that we were going to have a bunch of different symbiotes.
Yeah.
So we created these kind of, I don't know, you might refer to them as symbiote footballs, which were like lighting references that for each of the different like symbiote textures.
Oh, wow.
But we also had like a really good like Venom bust and a head model so that you can put it in the set and then the artists who are matching the look of the stuff somewhere down the line are able to match to that. So for me, I'd say the physical lighting reference is really key. I can show you.
Are those HDRI balls or whatever they're called?
Or these are like, we have like the xenophages. We had like a full-sized head of one of the xenophages.
Wow.
But it also helps the actors because you can like put it on a C-stand and be like,
scare the heck out of them.
And they can like see something and react to it.
Get the scale of it and everything. Yeah.
I was going to screen share some stuff, but I
do you use a lot of reflective materials too? Then also for those as reference to see the environment and
I mean, we always have a chrome ball and like we capture HDRIs of like every lighting setup that we do.
Yeah.
That's also pretty recent, isn't it? Or
HDRIs? I mean, that
used for
back to like I think the first time I did like HDRIs was on Charlotte's Web, which is like probably like 15 years ago.
Yeah. I bought a 360 camera recently, and one of the things that they talked about on it was that it also collects all the data automatically for some of that, and also scale. It also takes the image three steps up, 3 steps down. So I know they've been using it for reference on sets and things to be able to.
I know they
get
did some
there.
of that, like on. I was thinking when there was some friends of ours was working on Dunkirk, and they had one of those because like they wanted to keep a very small impact on set of the visual effects crew.
Yeah.
But like they were like, I think they were wearing like World War II uniforms with like a little like they'd pop off like
Yeah.
the sphere.
Yeah, I know they used it on the set of the boys and stuff. They used one because they need to get the reference for inside of a fish tank, for example, and stuff.
Oh,
And it gave
the
them all that
octopus.
lighting and everything.
Didn't we
We
use one of
used,
those?
it for the, we used that same camera for the on that same movie Life we did for the inside of the rat house.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the box was small that we couldn't get a full size DSLR inside it.
Yeah.
So we used one of those Theta, I think they're called
Theta
Theta
cameras.
cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't create the fidelity of the images that a DSLR will create, but it does. It got us out of a fix.
Yeah.
I guess it's the same thing that you were saying before, though. I mean, it's better to have something than not to have anything at all.
It's exactly that.
Right.
It's exactly that. Well, if we can't get what we need, what's the next best solution?
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. Like with diffuse lighting, you don't need super high resolution images anyway, because diffuse lighting is more just the blurred and diffused out anyway.
Right.
It's only for like reflective specular lighting that you need like higher, more fidelity images. I'm sure that totally went over everybody's head.
No.
It's top end geek shit.
It's funny because I think the other thing that's happened over time is, and not like AI stuff or anything like that. I mean, just the tools. I think partly because tools have become more available. I'm seeing 13-year-olds turning out, 3D effects because they have After Effects and a few other programs, and they've got an imagination, and they're, making things that we couldn't have back when I was 13.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you say that, I think that we weren't necessarily using like fluid sims on our laptops because we didn't have them. But, I had a Super 8 camera, and I would blow up soldiers and with fireworks. Yeah. And, there were things that we were doing when we were young that's sort of an extension of what happens today. It's just that, if you've got a decent laptop now, you've got a computer that's way more powerful than the computers we were using to do effects in movies at the start of our careers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just a fact, right?
Yeah.
So it becomes about how motivated is the individual to find a way of telling the story that they would like to tell. And I don't think anything much has changed in that regard. It's possible to do some fairly fancy looking shit these days.
Yeah. I guess expectations are a lot higher as well, though. Like the sort of effects that would have been deemed like incredible earlier, I guess nowadays aren't as incredible.
Yeah, I mean, there's also there's a different amount of style changes now too. Like there's a fashion or a trend to kind of move back towards some more practical creature effects, like bringing makeup back into the game, bringing back puppets. I think because there's you want to tailor, making a perfectly photoreal rendering of something isn't as big of a challenge as it used to be. So now it's a lot of times of tailoring the look of the visual effects the same way you would tailor the look of a film, like a cinematographer would tailor the look of the movie. You're designing and styling the visual effects to fit the tone and feel of the movie that you're doing, which is kind of a more interesting problem than just making a perfectly photoreal thing.
Most of the people involved in production that they interviewed they sent me, I think, 13 videos that were tied to the production of this movie. And most everybody said the same thing. They kept on saying it's a big marriage of the visual and practical effects. We did all these things that were practical. It's one of the largest things, and at the same time, everything had to have. There's nothing we couldn't touch without having to have it also go through the other side.
Yeah,
I think that's that's honest. Right?
Yeah.
So there's a kind of there's a bit of a movement at the moment. I refer to it as the practical evangelists, who oh, our movie's fucking awesome. We did it all for real.
No CGI. Yeah.
It's not true. And
Yeah.
and then there's the other end, which is there's the sort of the CGI evangelists. And the truth is, what's the best tool for the job?
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, how do we create a version of what it is we're being asked to do that tells the story best?
Yeah.
End of conversation. So, like, on this movie, Chris Corbold and his team built this enormous tank on the back lot at Leavesden, so that for the river sequence work, we had Tom and the stunt performers physically moving in water. And this tank was, I don't know how many.
Yeah, we saw the video.
gallons
Yeah, it
of
was insane.
Yeah.
Big. Yeah.
Yeah, it was massive, and it was being heated by these like insane heat pumps, and then it had things that were churning up the water surface, and like that is an incredible practical SFX application. Like, fucking well done.
Yeah.
But we still then had to go and use digital visual effects significantly in conjunction with that to tell the story. It's just how it works.
Yeah. And there was like weird practical problems of like, if you heat 10,000 gallons of hot water on a cold day, you produce a massive steam cloud.
Oh, yeah.
Which then any shots above water have a massive amount of steam in them, which you then have to. So it's like we help each other. Like,
Yeah.
You had to go in and de-steam it.
Yeah, I think there was a more.
Also, we had to have
the water.
wind movers moving the steam away practically wherever possible, but it was challenging.
Yeah, there's just like some physical, actual challenges to like having that.
You could easily make hilarious. We tried to do this practically, but this is what happened. Videos,
Right.
Like, you could easily make that. You can make a whole fucking litany of when practical goes bad, and equally you can say that about when visual effects goes bad.
Yeah, that's where corridor crew is being king now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, let's all get to the point in the journey where it's like, what's best for the movie.
I think you reach a point of diminishing returns where it would actually become more viable to spend more on actual people and get a better product than to just cut corners everywhere.
I mean, people want to watch it.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, in terms of like, if we look at the physics and the engineering behind that tank that Chris Corbold and the team built, like, it's enormous. The forces that were at play on that tank were massive. Like, I don't know what the engineering information is, but it was significant, and that comes at a significant amount of risk for the producers, and it comes as a result of a significant amount of experience for the SFX supervisor to be able to say, look, this is going to be safe.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to put a group of people around this tank, and they are going to be able to go and do a day at work without becoming injured. So it is a huge undertaking. And I think a lot of people do deserve an enormous amount of credit for the work that they do. But there's a strange blurry line where some studios don't like to talk about it. They like to say it's all practical, or it's all something, or it's all this. I think in light of what I said earlier about Kelly and some of the producers and studio on this movie, everyone has been really collaborative, and we've been quite fortunate that everybody is talking about all aspects of this production, which is quite refreshing, and it feels nice to be part of a production where that happens.
And we wouldn't have gotten, without the SFX, we wouldn't have been able to get the performances of the actors in the environment, in the water, and all these, even though we ended up replacing 80% of the tank, and there was a massive amount of augmentation to it the scene wouldn't have existed without the foundation that we got from the SFX department.
Yeah.
So it's like the two they're not mutually exclusive and they're not antagonistic to each other.
They're symbiotic.
Fits in with the
Venom.
We'd like to thank John and Aaron for sitting down with us. Remember, Venom: The Last Dance is now available on digital, so check your local listings. Also, to learn more about Venom, John, and Aaron, be sure to check out the description below. Be sure to check out Vinz on Twitter at MassiveDMG_ and on his YouTube channel, MassiveDMG. Check out James at Mr. Malto4 on Instagram and the Replica Prop Forum. We also want to hear from you, so be sure to send your questions, stories, and other projects to yourgeekfix@gmail.com. In the meantime, this has been your Geek Fix.